Hi Pisces, welcome back to the Astrology 33 channel. This is your August 2025 tarot reading. Thank you to those of you who have liked, viewed, shared, and subscribed to the channel. I appreciate all of that. For those of you new to the channel, as far as what we have in front of us, it's a Celtic cross spread as always, and I also pulled the 4 agreements and wisdom of the oracle card for you guys. But we're actually going to start the reading off by rolling those astrology dice we have in front of us to get an idea of where your focus should be as far as that goes. Alright, we have 6. So, sixth house energy for you guys is Leo, and of course, makes sense to see that come up as far as we're pretty much just starting off Leo season. And sixth house in general points to health, work, and daily routines. As far as the main Leo energies we'll be dealing with, of course, the sun will be there until August 22nd. We have a new moon coming up in Leo on the 24th of July. We currently have Mercury retrograde in Leo. It'll start direct motion again on the 11th. Toward the end of the month, we'll have Venus move in there on the 25th. So yeah, plenty of energy going through your 6th house, so it makes sense to see that come up in the dice. Alright, we have Cancer, so we're just wrapping up Cancer season here, but we have Jupiter in Cancer. We also will have Venus in there coming in at the very end of July and through most of August. And yeah, that's it for the Cancerian energy. And for you guys, Cancer is your 5th house of romance, creativity, children. And we have the North Node. So the North Node is in your sign. So generally speaking, North Node could point to karmic growth. So we'll keep all that in mind as we go through the main spread. In the main situation position, we have the 4 of Wands, which is Aries energy. And then challenging that, we have the 2 of Swords, which is Libra energy. So we have two opposites there. What I'm getting for a lot of you actually could just be saying that maybe, for example, you might have bought a house, right? And maybe initially you were very happy with the purchase, but now you could be reconsidering if it's practical, right? So maybe you figured, okay, maybe you bought too big of a space, right? Or maybe this could also just be saying that maybe you had a financial goal like that, right? Like, oh, I want to earn X amount of dollars so I could buy this big house. And I could be reevaluating, like, okay, is that still something I actually want? Is that still practical? So it looks like there could be some reevaluation of potentially where you live, or maybe even just financial goals in general. All right, in the foundation position, we have the 2 of Pentacles. So yeah, so for some of you, if you already did make that big purchase, right, maybe that's where this is coming from, because now you're like, okay, this is taking a lot more to maintain this than I thought it would, right? So you could be having your doubts around if this was a practical move or not because of that. Or for others of you, it could just be saying that maybe that was more of like this fantasy vision you have, but now you're like, looking at it through a more realistic lens and saying, okay, would that really be practical to do this or what? In the past position, we have the 6 of Pentacles. So yeah, so this usually points to an energy of balance. So this could just be saying that you might have had the actual ability to make the purchase in the past, right? Or at the very least, whether you already made it or not, it seems like it was something that was going to be realistic at the time for you at the past. In the present position, we have the 8 of Cups. So yeah, this is actually a Piscean energy right here. And it could just be saying that ultimately you might be deciding that, yeah, you do want to walk away from that situation. So the first thing that came to mind with this was your living space. So it doesn't necessarily mean at all you're thinking that you want to move from where you're living or things like that. Although I will say we recently had Uranus move into your 4th house, which can point to your home environment. So and the Uranus energy could point to sudden shifts there. So yeah, so for some of you might have decided recently that you do want to move from where you currently live, right? So again, going back to what we said, maybe you bought a space that was bigger than was practical, and now you're like, okay, I'd actually rather downsize and just be able to free up some of my resources to be able to travel more, right? Things along those lines. Or you might have come to the realization that because you travel a lot, does it make sense to have this huge space, right? So it could just be one of those things where you're reevaluating those goals and making adjustments. In the near future position, we have the Ace of Pentacles. So yeah, so it looks like you will get a little bit more clarity on what the best route to pursue around the situation would be. So like I said, if this is around something you've already purchased and you're trying to think, do you still want to keep it? Or if this is just more of a financial goal you've had for a while, but now you're trying to think, okay, does this still fit with what I currently want, or can I move on to something else? Looks like you'll be getting that clarity soon. Right? In the position of your influence on the situation, we have the High Priestess. So yeah, so maybe just you're intuitively picking up on whether or not this is going to be something that you'd want to really have in the long term, right? Um, so especially for those of you who haven't made that move yet, right? It could just be one of those things like, oh, is this something I would want, or would it just become more of a hassle down the line, right? So it could just be one of those things that you're thinking about at this time. All right, in the environment position, we have the Nine of Cups. So this is actually another Piscean energy here, which points to contentment. So yeah, so for some of you, could just be saying that once you get that clarity on, okay, is this practical for me or not, or should I pursue something else? Looks like once you do get that moment of clarity, you will be feeling a lot more content. So for some of you, maybe that'll mean that ultimately you do decide to stay where you are, right? For others of you, you might decide, yeah, actually decide absolutely do want to move, right? So whichever decision you make here, it looks like there will be some contentment around that. And I do have to say, interestingly enough, though, if this is like a situation where you're with a partner, right, and you both purchased a house together, let's say, right, and you might be determined, like, oh, you know what, I don't think this was a good idea. I want to move somewhere else. The tricky part there might be this person, your partner might decide that they're ultimately happy with where they are, so they might not want to move, right? So obviously there could be some tough discussions around that if that's the case. All right. In the hopes or fears position, we have the Queen of Cups. So yeah, this is an interesting energy to see here. I'm going to assume for a lot of you this is more of a hope, and I feel like this is saying that maybe you thought of home as representing like a more physical space at the time, but now maybe this is you just ultimately hoping that the feeling that comes with that, you're just hoping that you could have that feeling with you wherever you do decide to go, right? So yeah, so for some of you, you could just be deciding that you would like to just travel more or just move altogether. Right? And in the outcome position, we have the moon. So yeah, whenever I see the moon come up in a tarot spread, I like to think of the main lunar cycles that'll be taking place for the period that this reading represents. So with that in mind, we haven't had that new moon in Leo just yet. That's coming up on the 24th of July. There's going to be a full moon in Aquarius on the 9th of August, and then the 23rd of August, there's going to be a new moon in Virgo. So be on the lookout for those lunar cycles in particular. That might give you some significant insight on what to do around the situation. But yeah, this could also just point to an energy representing a lack of clarity as well. So I would say if this is just something that came to you out of the blue, right, where all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't like where I live anymore, I want to leave, I would say try to give that some time, to see if that's a feeling that persists. Whereas on the other side, if this is something you've been thinking about for a while now the feeling just seems to be getting stronger, then yeah, then that might mean that this is something that you would want to look at more seriously. All right. From the Four Agreements deck, we have Don't Take Anything Personally, and it says Love and Respect Yourself. All right, it says you are never responsible for the actions of others, but you are responsible for you. If someone is not treating you with love and respect, it is a gift if they walk away from you. You may hurt for a while, but your heart will eventually heal. So definitely an interesting message there, right? Because I did mention that potential dynamic where if this was one of those things where you'd like to move and the other person doesn't, right, there could be some kind of a split around that. But obviously this could point to a different situation as well. But if this is a situation that you resonate with, hopefully that message was helpful. All right, and from the Wisdom of the Oracle, we have By the Book. There's the artwork. The number is 11. We'll see what this has to say. All right. Essential meanings says abiding by social rules, conformity, respecting cultural or family customs, universal laws. The Oracle's message. The universe works within the structure of divine laws and principles that provide a framework for human experience and evolution. The law of abundance, the law of prayer, the law of karma, the law of attraction, the law of thought, the law of compensation, and the law of nature are only a few that are known. These principles create perfect order and operate with a kind of precision beyond human understanding. Even revolution has its place in universal law. Human beings, in turn, have their own laws and customs that vary from culture to culture and family to family. Laws keep social order and govern behavior, reflecting an instinctive understanding that harmony is important. This is a time to learn these laws and conform to them, rather than being the rebel and flouting them. When this card appears, submit to structure and follow the rules, even if they seem to make no sense. Release resistance, for universal laws will correct any disharmony. Open your eyes to those universal laws, and it will be easier to go by the book at this time. So yeah, definitely an interesting message there, right? Especially if you are trying to make a big decision around something, and especially if it's something that's significant that's potentially moving. But hopefully that resonated. All right. And the relationship message says getting along with others entails understanding and respecting who they have become as a result of their environment, culture, and experience. Find a middle ground that allows the relationship to flourish while honoring the individuality of the other person. Play things by the book instead of trying to break the rules or pressure others to conform to the way you want to do them. Your connection will deepen as a result. So yeah, an interesting message there, right? Because then that makes me think of, if we think of all this dynamic taking place within a relationship, right? It could be one of those things where, for example, you're just more on the spiritual side, and then this person could be more of a materialistic type of person, right? And maybe there's that clash there, and trying to figure out how to balance those two dynamics within a relationship. The prosperity message says, at this time, you can expect a return on your investment. Whatever you have pursued, be it a dream you've long cherished, a skill you've cultivated, or a service you're called to, will come to you if you are willing to go by the book. You don't need to reinvent the wheel to be successful. Follow in the footsteps of others who have already achieved the things that you're striving for. You can learn a lot by observing the structures that are already working. Your creative projects and commitment to prosperity are in alignment with the needs of the world, but impatience may tempt you to cut corners to get there more quickly. Stick with what you know works, and you will attract abundance. So yeah, definitely an interesting message there as well. Especially takes me back to what I was saying, for some of you, if this feeling of all of a sudden wanting to move to a different environment and things along those lines just seem to come up out of the blue, right? I feel like this could be one of those things where that might be an energy that eventually will pass with a little bit of time. Whereas, like I said, if this is something that's been bubbling to the surface for a long time now, and now it just seems to be getting stronger, then it might be worth looking at a bit more seriously. But yeah, definitely an interesting reading, but hopefully that resonates with you guys. We'll wrap up there, and I'll see you all next month. All right, bye.